In the previous video, we said that we could distinguish qualitative data by looking to see whether it's in numerical form or not. We could just stop there. But most academic uses of qualitative data really look at a special type of qualitative data. In this video, we'll look at the second condition of my definition of qualitative data, that the data also has to arise from the actions of people. Imagine if we had a computer with a camera pointed towards the sky. We could program it to report the weather in non-numerical formats. This computer could report such things as, it's sunny out, it's overcast, it looks like heavy fog. We could program the computer to make its reports either in video, in audio, or text. We could even program more variability or sophistication into its outputs. There are two aspects to this example. One, who or what creates the output, in this case the computer, and two, the form of the outputs, in this case non-numerical data. Because they're in non-numerical form, the outputs from my computer meet my first condition of being qualitative data. The first condition of my definition classifies data just in terms of its form. If our computer was programmed only to report the temperature in Celsius, in other words, if it reported only numerically, it'd be clear that it's not reporting qualitative data. But is form enough to define qualitative data? If pushed, I think yes. We should concede that our weather reporting computer produces qualitative data in the sense that it reports items in a non-numerical form. This is the way the term qualitative data may be used in chemistry or in other natural sciences. But form alone is insufficient to identify the type of data that most qualitative researchers focus on and get excited about. To use the analogy used in a previous video, relying on the form of data just doesn't show us where the main stage is for using qualitative data. To identify that type of data, to get us to the main stage, we also need to classify data by who produces it. It's the objects and items that ultimately originate from a person or people's actions that are the prime focus of qualitative research. It is this subclass of non-numerical data that is key. We can even think of it as human-derived non-numerical data, or non-numerical data coming from people. In our video on epistemology, I said that although we cannot directly access another person's consciousness, by studying their actions and the items they create, we can learn something about how they know, understand, and live in the world. In fact, studying these items and objects in their non-numerical form is likely the most powerful research approach we have for exploring many aspects of our social world. To recognize this fact, the second condition of my definition is that qualitative data must ultimately originate from a person or people's actions. In other words, the type of data that we're interested in has a human origin. We could use unique terms to differentiate data that only meets my first condition, like the outputs of our weather reporting computer, from data which meets both the first and second condition. In other words, to differentiate non-numerical data from data that's both non-numerical and comes from people. But given the established usage of the term qualitative data, I worry that trying to establish new terminology may cause greater confusion. For now, I'll refer to them both by the same term. But one advantage of my definition is that it allows us to easily distinguish these two senses of the term if we ever need. I also said that these items and objects must ultimately originate from a person or people's actions. This phrasing may seem too vague or be less exact than some people might hope for. My intention is to allow a fairly wide scope in terms of the types of items being identified. It would include items and objects ultimately originating from an individual person. For example, if you interviewed a person, any recordings, transcripts, notes based on or arising from that interview, I would see as ultimately originating from a person's actions. It would also include items that originate from or reflect the collective actions of people. These may include documents that a government department releases, recordings of a group activity, university guidelines, pictures of events, artifacts. While the second condition may raise questions about whether specific items satisfy this condition or not, it will still help us identify the type of data most qualitative researchers work with and highlight that it's not just items that are non-numerical. Thank you for watching. In the next video, we'll look at the last part of my definition of qualitative data, that an item only becomes data when it's part of a research project.